Good evening. I'm George Herbig, Chief Forecaster, here with Weather Now, Kentucky. We have had a long day of storms. Feels like it's been a long week of storms. I don't know if I'm the only one that feels like that, but that's exactly what it feels like right now. We do have an update for you. We have a potential round two developing. We'll talk about that. We'll try to take a brief look into tomorrow, but quite honestly, the models are handling it terribly, like they've handled the last three systems. But we'll take a brief look into that for you. We'll also update you where the current radar is, where we think round two, if there is one to develop, may impact, and some other things to go over here. If you wouldn't mind, as you're coming into the broadcast, as always, you guys are pros at this by now. Tap the share button at the bottom portion of your screen. Share this video onto your news feed so that way your friends and family can view it as well. And so that way we get our information and updates out to as many folks as possible that may need them without realizing that they need them. So thank you so much for your help with that. We appreciate you. Of course, make sure you're saying hello as you come in so I can greet you guys. I know it's been a long day for a lot of folks. Everyone's tired. It's been a long few days for some folks in central Kentucky that have been hit by every single wave. It feels like I think last time I saw there was some 5 to 8 inch rainfall markers that are popping up in south central Kentucky. Again, we do have a potential round two developing, so let's go ahead and dive on into that. By the way, I want to make a real quick note to you before we go into the information. Severe thunderstorm watch has been canceled for up here. It never existed over here, although obviously you can make the argument that it should have. They dropped it from up here and, of course, over here. So it only exists for this region. And the reason for that is kind of like what we talked about on the last broadcast that we did, a couple of hours ago. The reason that there is a watch still standing for central Kentucky is there is an outflow boundary, and Mike and I, along with some friends in the weather world, have been watching it like a hawk over the last hour and a half. What is an outflow boundary? Well, by now you should probably know what it is. We talked about it so many times the last few days. It's the same pattern. An outflow boundary can be a boundary that's left from a previous storm. So for example, where's my mouse? I don't know where my mouse went. Hello? Are you on? There it is. For example, let me pull up the other radar right here and see if it can still show it. Of course, it doesn't really show it very well now. But when this line of storms came through earlier, right, we had this bad boy. They weakened. They did. Obviously, they're still producing some chaos down there south of Somerset toward Monticello. But overall, they did weaken. Whenever they weakened, they created a boundary that got laid right here. Over the last hour and a half or so, that boundary has slowly, and it's very slowly, drifted back out here to the west. Some action occurred in southern Indiana, literally just something like this, and it's beginning to try and spark that boundary, as you can see right here. The question now becomes, can that boundary get going? The answer is, we don't know, because we have this at play. So this, what's on your screen now, it kind of shows us the current analysis of what the environment is currently consisting of. Okay, this map in particular, I know it kind of looks crazy, but you've seen this a lot over the last few broadcasts as well. Here's Kentucky over here. There's that big blue blob we keep talking about. That is negative energy. This will work to try and block storms before they even pop up. It will also try to keep storms tamed even after they pop up. So you can see it's pretty deep. Basically from, let's call it Owensboro, over toward just west of, or just east of Lexington, is stretching all the way down south into south central and southeastern Kentucky. That is why that first line, sorry, my throat's really dry today. That is why that first line was able to get weaker a little bit faster. Okay? The problem is, yes, we have a lot of negative energy, but we also have a ton of energy on the positive side called instability or CAPE. So that's all the red lines that you're seeing there. You can see if we follow this line right here, it should tell us somewhere, there it is, 3,000 joules of CAPE in western and central Kentucky, around 1,500 or so, even in the spots that the storm's already hit. So basically what's going to occur over the next hour or so, and I wanted to go live just to explain it to you, is the outflow boundary that got sparked. This little bad boy right here, what we call a baby cell, okay? It got sparked. The question now remains, will it root enough, basically get going, get mature enough to light up the entire line that invisibly, and I'm going to draw it for you, exists about right there, okay? The interesting aspect of this is this boundary is actually moving to the west and this storm is actually moving to the east. So you see, there's all kinds of tricks all through here on whether or not this will actually fire or not, which is why we kept telling you guys earlier when you kept asking, is there going to be a round 2 or is there more to this tonight? We genuinely kept telling you guys that we don't know, and it's because we really did not know, because there are so many contradicting aspects to this. We have a lot of negative energy. We also have a lot of positive energy. The 500 the 500 millibar flow, which is several thousand feet above our heads, that wind is starting to pick up a little bit now, so that should aid storm activity. But once again, up there, you also have negative energy present. So there's a lot of positive and negative. So it's a really big we don't know. But I wanted to go live to show you that it is kind of sparking a bit. So if you start hearing some rowdiness, especially around central Kentucky, you know that there's a round 2 being sparked. I want to go ahead and look at this real briefly here, just to make sure there's a little bit of rotation going on above the surface. So, a few thousand feet up, we have the red and the green next to each other. That's inbound wind versus outbound wind from the radar. That indicates that a storm is rotating. That does not necessarily mean that it's tornadic or rotating at the surface. When it's weak like this, or very broad, or very dull like this is showing, usually that indicates some upper level rotation. And even that is probably pretty weak. So this indicates that the storm is trying to root itself. It's trying to get stronger. It's trying to produce. And we can already tell by looking at the southern edge of it, it's trying to attach some more precipitation onto it. It's trying to what we call percolate, which is basically allowing the process of the rain to actually come down to the ground to start occurring. So it's trying. It really is trying. And we can look up here in southern Indiana, right on your left side of the screen, and we can tell that this storm line is starting to get longer as well. If these two can somehow connect over the next hour or so, well, then we have a spark again. So I wanted to just come on the broadcast and let you guys know that a round 2 is still possible. First of all, I just want to make that very clear. Round 2 is still possible, but we cannot guarantee it either way. Also wanted to update you on letting you know that the Severe Thunderstorm Watch has been canceled for some folks, and it also has been added to southern Kentucky, and that goes for another hour. And the one up here goes for another hour as well, so it's on the same time frame. So basically, we have about an hour left of deciding whether these storms are going to go or not. And if you look right there on the newest scan, we start seeing it stretch out even further. So it's starting to look like we do have 2 areas here that are beginning to spark. If they can connect, then we absolutely have a round 2 that's going to impact basically the same areas that's already been impacted today. All right, these storms love to go over the same places. They don't like to go to new areas. It's like a little bit different than the spring storms we talk about. Remember, in the spring, we tell you that, hey, storms don't really like to go over the same area. They'll try to find new places. In the summertime, they like to go over places that have already been hit. It's easier for them to survive that way. So that big what ifs right now, but I wanted to come on here and just kind of explain to you where we're at right now at the 6 o'clock hour, now approaching the 7 o'clock hour. And just let you know that, hey, it's calm for now, but it might spark again. And I'm also starting to see some lightning bolts show up. Usually that indicates that a storm is trying to root, or that a storm is beginning to root, which lets us know, by the way, if a storm roots, that just means it's being able to attach itself to the energy and being able to survive. So all signs kind of point to right now the storm line being able to reignite. Again, it's going to be moving into this big blue area here, which is negative, very cool energy that will help to try and work the storms over and shut them down before they get going. Sometimes in the summertime, and this is what we've seen so far the last few days, sometimes in the summertime, the storms don't care about negative energy. They just flat out don't. They just go right through it, and it's like it's never even there. Sometimes the cap wins out. Right? Sometimes it blocks them. So it really is genuinely a 50-50 on whether we see a round 2. And if we do see a round 2, it would probably be the same areas that have already been impacted. So if you're in like Madisonville, Hopkinsville, Henderson, Paducah, Murray, that are asking me, hey, George, are we going to see anything tonight? Your answer is no. Even if you're in like Bowling Green, where they added the Severe Thunderstorm Watch at, I don't see it happening down there. Now, can it? Yes. That's only if, the only way that Bowling Green and places down here in the south see storm activity is if something ever pops up here and actually gets going and moving in. Because once again, I want to tell you that this storm line is moving east. So we can tell that's moving away from Bowling Green. This storm line is moving east. It's moving away from places like central and south central Kentucky. The only I guess if you're looking for a storm, the only hope that you have in Bowling Green and Glasgow and Hart County, Russellville, Franklin, for you folks down there on the Tennessee-Kentucky border, is that if this little very newborn baby cell gets going. But I can tell you there have been several pop-up little rain showers near Evansville, and they've all fizzled out. It's just way too much of a cap over there. So realistically, the only portions of Kentucky right now that's at play to see perhaps at round 2 is the northern portion of the watch area and then extending a bit east. That's probably about it. So just want to let you guys know that. I'll get to a few of your questions, but if they're just repetitive, we'll just end the broadcast. Not even trying to be mean, but I've given all the information I can, and my voice is about to go bye-bye. I'm in a trailer in McCreary County about to get hit now. Oh, you should be. I mean, if you're already about to get hit, you don't want to get out and move at that point. You basically need to stay put. It's one thing to move before a storm gets to you. It's another thing to move while it's going. Yeah, for Wayne County, Pulaski County, McCreary County, Whitley County, your wind gusts they're at 60 mile per hour. I don't think that's anything to. You said you're where? You said you're in what? I'm in a trailer. I mean, if your neighbor's house is close, I suppose, but I mean, I don't think. Let me measure this real quickly before I put my foot in my mouth here. I just give you, want to do my due diligence. But the problem with down here, where you're at, is if you look, you have a radar's right there, and a radar's right there, but it's a complete gap through here. So we're going to try to go through a few different ones here. Definitely see a little bit of something on that radar, but once again, you're in that big gap. So let's go ahead and switch them and, double verify. Not a whole lot on that one. Not a whole lot on that one. So I feel like this radar will probably be the most accurate. Let's just go ahead and go down here though, because it's most visually pleasing. Definitely are seeing some downburst winds occurring. 58, 61, looking pretty on the line of 60 mile per hour. I don't think that's destructive to a trailer. Just to always, of course, depends upon how structured your trailer is as well. Obviously, I don't have that information. So, but if it's already that close, I would not suggest getting outside and getting in it. That's just my 2 cents. Monticello, Kentucky, obviously you got a strong thunderstorm going on there. Severe warn that's exiting your area now, so you've already dealt with it. I don't think you'll see a round 2. For round 2, where would it eventually, or pop up at, what it? Sorry about my stuttering today. I don't know why it's going so crazy. I think I've had too much coffee. But if there are to be a round 2, or if there is to be a round 2, it would likely be in this area. The reason I don't think it expands any further east is because there's way too much of a cap over here. It is way too big. I mean, we're talking about negative almost 400. That's just way too big. And there's even a big cap in here. And then it could extend a little bit south, but that's only if a storm line gets going back out to the west. Which, I mean, the Evansville one is trying to get going, but it's also a bit too far away from the boundary. So it's there's genuinely, guys, there's a lot of 50-50s everywhere. Yeah, Kelly. I mean, real simply, it's just a lot of warm, moist air. A lot of warm, moist air, and just that time of year. Really, I mean, very simply, when you have this much warmth, right, guys, you're talking about having 4,000 joules of Cape. That's not very layman, but you're talking about having basically a full tank of gas every day and just waiting for something to spark it. What we have right now, and I'll kind of just show it just in a very, very broad look here. By the way, we're not the only ones dealing with storms today. I mean, you got some really significantly strong storms up here in Lincoln, Nebraska. But what's occurring is basically you have a little something like this. Okay, this is your jet stream. It is extremely hot over here. It's actually being referred to as the big media as a heat dome. It's just a scare factor, but that's just how it is. Also, really hot down here. But storms love to ride these boundaries. And this boundary line isn't perfect, by the way. It's just something I just drew real quickly. But storms and energy and just in short waves and what have you, they love to ride these boundaries. And the boundary just has not moved. The boundary just has not moved. And also, when you're talking about summertime storms and even in the spring, when you do have storm activity, it will leave outflow boundaries. Outflow boundaries are the last existence of a previous storm line. So, for example, when this storm line came through central Kentucky, it actually left an outflow boundary that was shaped like this, around Radcliffe to Campbellsville. Slowly, that outflow boundary has trickled up to the north, where another shortwave, or what's also referred to as a piece of energy several thousand feet up, has made its way over to that same area. It's caught up to that shortwave and it's trying to ignite another line right here. That type of pattern, that type of shortwave, and that type of boundary has repeated itself over and over and over and over and over again the last few days. And that's why we've had this significantly wet pattern that probably will not go away until Friday at the earliest, if I'm being honest with you. And then after that, beyond that, the ridge, or what we call a ridge, which was the big line that I showed you earlier, right? The ridge that we have, it's kind of shaped like this right now. You can kind of see it with the storms. That's an awful line. Let me at least try to redo that a little bit. It's an awful line. That ridge will eventually push south and south and south and south, and then behind it, we get a little bit of a reward. There will actually be cooler air that moves in next week, and toward the end of next week, I should say. So eventually the pattern will flip again. You guys know we went through about 3 weeks of almost completely dry conditions, right? So the pattern flips this way. Everything is about balance, not only in weather but in life, and it'll eventually swing back the other way. If Carrollton sees a second wave, it'll be later on tonight. Again, it's a massive if. How do I predict this one to move the same way, guys? If we're in the same pattern, they're going to move the same way. So again, these types of storms, they love to go over the same areas that have already been hit. That's just the unfortunate truth of it all. So again, it would be kind of the same areas, right? Just the same areas that have already been hit today. Now, the caveat to that is it would be the same areas that got hit at first. So, for example, you're getting hit now in Somerset, Richmond, and Berea down here to London, right? You likely won't see anything from the second wave because there'll be too much of a cap there. The areas that get hit first earlier are actually up here to the north, right? And that's where we see the storms that are growing now, once again. You've had more time to clear out. You've had more time to become unstable. You've had more time to support stronger storms being able to reignite. Again, at least it's just the same threat, guys. Very, 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 very low tornado risk, along with a damaging wind risk, along with a flash flood risk. Kelly, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Tori, thank you. How about tomorrow? I'll show you the models for tomorrow, but again, guys, models have been dog crap. Just to put it in a PG term, they have been terrible. They have just been terrible. So honestly, to be honest with you, I've looked at models maybe a total of 10 minutes last couple of days. What I have done is about every 2 hours each day, starting at about 7 a.m. We've been looking at current analysis, which is all these charts here, right? We've been comparing them. You got several different charts here. Let's just click on a few different ones. We've been taking that and we've been trying to find the best zones where moisture is lining up with instability, and that's how we've been making our forecast. So we really haven't been it's just been a lot of math and science behind the scenes stuff that you guys don't see. We haven't really been looking at models because they've been flat out terrible. For example, if I go back to earlier, let's say this round here, it showed a little bit of rain in the morning, and then nothing, 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 nothing until 10 p.m. tonight. Obviously, that was not the case. Obviously, we've had storms all day long. So they've just been flat out terrible. But I'll show you what they look like for tomorrow just so you can have some type of perspective because I think they're handling it okay. I just wouldn't say they're doing anything substantially well on it. So for Thursday morning, a few showers may be occurring out here for Eastern Kentucky, but I'll remind you that it also showed showers for this morning as well. It didn't really happen as it said. So as that pushes forward to the afternoon, because once again, it's the same time frames, guys. Remember, we're dealing with the same patterns, so it's going to be almost the same thing, different day. Almost feels like Groundhog Day. 2 p.m. Eastern time or 4 p.m. Eastern time. Perhaps some cells popping up in Eastern Kentucky. 5 p.m. Eastern time. Now this line, if it comes in like this model is saying, this might be tornadic. Just putting it very bluntly for you, because of the amount of wind shear that it has with it. It's a little bit more wind shear than what we've dealt with the last couple of days. I still wouldn't think this would be a very high tornado threat, but it could be a bit higher than what we've seen. And still, the main risk would be damaging winds, perhaps even some hail involved with this, with these big white spikes that you're seeing, along with, of course, flash flooding. Once again, this is very, very heavy rainfall. 7 p.m. Eastern time, it kind of scoots its way into Kentucky at this point. 9 p.m. Eastern time makes its way out to eastern Kentucky, and then so on and so forth. But I want you to remember that just because this is what it's showing right now does not mean it's what's going to happen tomorrow. Because I'll tell you that everything that has occurred so far today, yesterday, and the day before has not been what model data has shown. So that's why I really don't even want to show you this, quite honestly. But at least it gives you some perspective that storms are possible once again tomorrow with the basically the same threats. I want to check back in on these storms. Yeah, they're raining. A little bit of lightning with them. But not severe, not anything close to severe. And quite honestly, it looks like this one might be falling apart. But I am noticing a bit of a hook at the top of this. But I'm not seeing anything on the velocity side. So it might just be a coincidence. No, there's not really a time. Again, I think storms are just, you just have the chance of storms till 9 p.m. Eastern time. The reason I'm not giving timelines once again is because this stuff is developing right over us, guys. And really, because of what we said for the last 20 minutes here, it's 50-50 on whether it even keeps going or whether it just completely dies out. I'll tell you, it's been trying to go for the last couple of hours, and every so let's try to go as eventually fizzled out. Now, these do look a little bit more mature, but our atmosphere is just it's so worked over from this, this last round of storms, what we see out here to the east, right? This is what we had over here. This is what we had in central Kentucky earlier today. Well, that's a bad circle right there, but there you go. That's what we had in central Kentucky earlier today, and you can just imagine that all of this rain and wind that we saw earlier really just dwindled our environment. There's not a whole lot of energy to support severe weather, but once again, when you're dealing with summertime storms, they can just, or summertime storms, they can just do whatever they want. So that's why the chance is still there. Yes, if this thing can root and spark further, this would likely be the impact area. So again, nothing too crazy there. Another severe warning just went up for that eastern line. We'll cover that in just a second. Looks like the one in Evansville is starting to get going, but once again, it looks like these storms are mainly moving to the east, not to the south. So not entirely sure why they added the severe watch down there for Bowling Green, Glasgow, Franklin, you folks on there in southern Kentucky. Not entirely sure why they added you guys to it, but hey, maybe they're seeing something we don't. They have done a pretty good job the last few days, in my opinion, so I'm not going to completely discount it, but just not quite sure. I'm not seeing a whole lot of evidence to support a severe watch down there for those portions of the area. Over here, back out here in eastern Kentucky, where that first line is still roaring through, a 60-mile-per-hour severe thunderstorm warning for wind gust has been issued for Knott, Floyd, Breathitt, and Magoffin County in southeastern Kentucky. And you still have the 60-mile-per-hour warning down here. And this is once again for Wayne, Pulaski, McCreary, and Whitley County in southeastern Kentucky as well. So those are your two warnings there, and that's your recap for now. It's just kind of watching how this line back here travels for the next hour or so as this line tries to exit eastern Kentucky. I'm not going to make this some long broadcast because, as you guys can probably tell, my voice is pretty going, and I'm trying to save it in case there is another severe threat tomorrow, where there most likely will be. And of course, if there's any more of a severe threat tonight. But that's pretty much it from us here at Weather Now Kentucky. We'll get to some more of your questions, but they're all basically the same ones. So hopefully we've already answered those questions in this broadcast. If you are just now tuning in late here, this video will be on our YouTube and our Facebook after it processes for a few moments. So you can go back through, kind of watch at your own leisure. You can even skip through some of the information as well that may not apply to you. I'm George Herbig, Chief Forecaster here with Weather Now Kentucky. Thank you so much for trusting our source. Until next time, stay safe, Kentucky.